everybody. Good morning, Jack. Hey, you know, for the first time, that was pretty good. You know, I'm going to change the configuration of this room. And I'm going to be up here, and you're going to be down there someplace on the side where I can't see you directly. Kelly just recommended that I go out there. Okay, well, let's see if it works. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Jack.
I don't think it's going to work the first time. Thank you for coming. We've got something that's a little bit different this time. In that we're going to record this, and so when we go around and do the introductions, you know, the short thing, 10 words or less, would you also say whether you are okay with being on the video, or you would rather that we wipe you out of the video?
What are you going to do?
You know, if you were supposed to be off in Las Vegas and you're here at a leadership meeting, and you don't want anybody to know that. I mean, I can understand the problem that you would have if you showed up on a video. But if you would, just as an acknowledgement of the fact that we are taping this, what's going to happen with it is that it's going to be edited and made as a best practices thing to help future facilitators get an idea of how the sessions would work, including the individual discussions. So, and a couple of things. We almost had a guest that was going to stay for the entire meeting, a technical person, and he was going to make sure that this cable didn't fall. But I don't know. You know, I've known Ian for a long time, but he just really pitched a fit about the fact that the guy was going to be standing up, and most of you would see. So anyway, he's not there. This is here because there's a connection problem on the floor mount. So Jeff, you're just going to.
I'm fine.
You have to look around.
It's like I can get you through bars.
Did you hear that, Pat? He sees me through bars. It's kind of like you at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Hate to break it to you, that wire's not blocking.
Is that right? How did that happen? Well, enough of that. Enough of this stuff. So some logistics before I completely lose control of the meeting. Restrooms are on either side of the elevator lobby. The men's room is on this side. The women's room is on the other side. Is there still a key?
There is.
Okay, there's a key at the reception desk for the women's room. And if you have one of these noisemakers, would you please put it on stun? Or take the battery out and throw the SIM card away or something to make it not make noise. I'll tell you, or I'll try to, tell you at the end to turn it back on. So we're here in this beautiful facility, which belongs to Shulman Rogers. It really doesn't belong to us, but they lend it to us every once in a while. And Pat is here because it's a labor of love for him. He doesn't have to be here because he doesn't show up to work until about 2 o'clock. So, okay, 3 o'clock. But Pat, would you like to say a couple words?
Sure. Welcome, everybody. I see some new faces today, which is great. For those who are new, you'll be impressed. This group is consistently show up early on a Friday morning regularly. The speakers are, with very few exceptions, are excellent. A great group of people here every month. So it really is an impressive group. Quick word about us: we're a full-service law firm. That means we do basically whatever legal needs you have, other than patent. You'll talk to Stuart for that. We cover just about everything else. So again, thanks for being here. Welcome everybody.
Can we give them a thank you for their hospitality? Yeah, that's it. I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with a number of folks at the firm in all different levels. And they're real people. They're very good at what they do. And I have no qualms about recommending them for anything other than patent law. And then there's Stuart for that. So thank you for that part. Can we do an introduction, just a quick round? Kathy, would you mind starting?
Sure. Kathy Kershaw, residential real estate with Evers and Company Real Estate. Yes.
Thank you.
Donna Evers, Evers and Company Real Estate, a Long and Foster Company.
Excuse me, I'm Bruce Rosenstein. I'm the managing editor of Leader to Leader, and yes on the video.
Did you answer yes?
Donna said yes.
Oh, okay.
I guess we should say no.
Edwards Holiday Atlantic Leadership Group, and yes.
Good morning, Howard Margolis, yes.
Good morning, Jim McAndrews, CFO at Griffin Diesel Engines LLC, yes.
Bob Kuiper, communication skills, and I've never been on video before, but it'll be okay this time.
Gabe Goldberg, freelance technology writer, yes.
Susan Commander Samago, certified professional coach, yes.
Stuart Shapiro, industrial and patent law.
Yes. Ed Samuels, Auxilium Technology, Chief Technical Officer, Digital Marketing, and the answer is yes.
Kelly Grossberg with Capital Benefits, independent full-service insurance agency. Yes.
My name is Harvey Green, Vice President for Philanthropy at MedStar Washington Hospital Center, yes.
Jen Abramson with MedStar Washington Hospital Center, and yes.
Pat Halley for Shulman Rogers, and my specific practice is trust estates, and yes.
So we've, for many of you, you've seen Ian up here in front sharing his view on things. Ian and I get together every once in a while and over Chinese food, and we try and solve the bigger problems of the world. So if things are getting better, it's either because of the food or because of what we've done. But the fascinating thing, in my view, about Ian is that he's not at all pretentious. He enjoys digging into things. He 30-some years ago, 31 years ago, he hung a shingle out and said, you know, I can help you with leadership. And he's had a very, very successful career as an entrepreneur in doing that. And one of the things, you know, we struggle with this thing about what is leadership, because we've all got a different definition. But let me just, after 30 years of studying this is what Ian says. I believe at its core, leadership is about helping your people gain access to, develop, and apply the best from within themselves in order to contribute superior performance to the benefit of the people of your organization, that your organization serves. That's servant leadership. That's the thing that we come together once a month to explore. So with that as an introduction, I want to get him up here because this is going to be fun.
Thank you, Jack.
About 2 to 3 years ago, I did my first time I did a presentation in this austere podium area. And I spoke about the whole leadership circle model of linking effective leadership with the level of integral human development kind of thing, adult development. And I just wanted to show, who, if anybody, remembers that and was here at that time? Anybody hear this before? Besides Jack? Okay. My second question was going to be, who was maybe been there but forgot because the speaker wasn't all that inspiring, that I didn't get that. Well, that's good. Well, that's good and it's bad because at that time I presented the full model, and today we're going to home in on one area of it called the reactive, and we're going to look at what's holding us back. So I'm going to do a quick overview, very fast content about the overall model so we can position where we're going to work in the context of the larger model. Okay, so there'll be some, this is fairly fast content, some of it which I've been able to put out on some sheets on your page. So one of the things about the leadership approach, the model of leadership development, is it tracks your level of adult independent development as a human being. And the idea being the more integrated we are as a human being, more mature in the, not the childish, but how mature we are as a human being, the more effective a leader we will be, and the more results we'll be able to get as a result of that. And so we talked about adult development being key. Now you can talk about levels of adult development. You could also use the term, which a lot of us are using now, is levels of consciousness. How consciously aware are we of how we do come across, and what our strengths are, and what kind of results we're getting, and what impact we're making in the real world in real time. You can also talk about complexity of mind. How complex have I developed myself as an individual to be able to deal with the complexity around me? So, adult development, levels of development of consciousness, levels of complexity is fine. So, the author, how many's heard of the word VUCA? Just quickly, VUCA, V-U-C-A. How many? I think it's been mentioned a few times up here. It comes from Bob Johansen and his book on Leaders Make the Future. And Bob coined the idea of a VUCA environment in which we're living today, being made up of volatile, uncertain, complex, there's the key one, and ambiguous. And the whole idea here is that the demands this put on our people and ourselves, we have to constantly be developing and upgrading our own level and ability to handle complexity, handle uncertainty, handle problems for which there's no logical, objective, analytical answer, working in that realm. How many of you are finding you or your clients are finding the space they're working in increasingly complex? And that's an issue that they're struggling with. Whether it's internally in your organization or with your market or market trends or the environment. Okay, a number of hands are going up. Well, Bob Anderson, who was the fellow who actually created the initial thought leader around the leadership circle, he talks about it. We have to boot up our leadership to an operating system at a higher level. And if you use the metaphor of, I'm a Mac guy, but DOS up to Windows, 5, 6, 7, and 10, whatever, going up. Every time you boot up, it's able to handle more complex applications at a faster speed and greater memory and yada, yada, yada. So we have to do the same thing with ourselves. Now, this is taking a lot of different models of adult development, and about 7 or 8 out there that are similar but worded differently, and chunking it into roughly 3 levels. The reactive level is after we leave our teens, which we could call the egocentric level, and I think a lot of you would agree with that, if you have teenagers. We move beyond that, we move and we grow into what's called the reactive level. And this is where we're reacting to the world around us. We're seeking cues from people and events, particularly reaction of people, from other people about how good we are, about how acceptable we are, about how smart we are, about whether we should make that decision or not, about what our level of loyalty is. We get judgments, we take all that in, reacting, and we actually introject that, and that becomes our identity for a lot of times. And we're always looking for other people to call the shot and make the decision. Our first priority in the reactive level is, I gotta be safe, I gotta be secure, and I wanna be valued. So how do I do that? Well, I got to find out what everybody's doing and how do I fit in and all that sort of thing. And that's the reactive level in a very, very hybrid. It's not a bad level. You can get results at a reactive level. Leaders who are operating on that reactive operating system will generate results. It's just that because they're out, first of all, for themselves and not for the larger organization, they hit a ceiling as to what they can generate with that particular approach. It's like their operating system has been maxed out. Make sense? So that's a really overview on it. The creative level, you're looking more at beyond myself now, and this is an evolution of a human being. What does the organization need? What do other people need? What do I care about that matters to me about out there versus what do I care about me? To what extent do I care about me? And the shift of focus when you move from a leader of a reactive to a creative operating system is you're now driven by, drawn to, dedicated to making something happen out there, and it's not because of you. And you can imagine the impact that has on people who work for you if you come with that more expansive mindset. Now, interestingly and unfortunately, the research shows that most, 80 to 90% of people, when they get up to the reactive level, they basically stall. And they operate from that mindset primarily for the rest of their life. That means most of the employees that you, or your clients or the leaders you have, most of the employees are operating fundamentally at a reactive level. And I'll get a little more into this obviously in a moment here. So there are some who are moving up to creative. I hope a lot of us are there. And you're not totally one or the other. Our feet are always rooted in the reactive. You never take it away, but you transcend it when you move up to a more creative level. I'm not going to spend time on the integral because maybe 2 or 3% of the population is showing to be up at that level. That's a much higher, more planetary conscious level, which I don't understand because I'm not anywhere near that, and it's not the purpose of today. So the leadership model, though, and I'm going to show it to you briefly because we're going to work with part of it. They have 29 competencies on the outer circle, and they have an inner circle, which you'll see, but they've divided it into reactive and creative, and this tracks the reactive mindset to the creative mindset. And when you do a 360 on that, the data is displayed this way. So you can, and I'm not going to go into what the shadings all mean right now, but this is a leader who is quite a bit down on in the operating under the reactive end, but we're doing well up in the creative end too, tending more to one side, a more task side. But that means this person is perceived and experienced by the people who completed the 360 as being very much still reactive, but having some good elements of creativity in there. So we're not going to spend much time on the integrative, of course, but the key area for leadership development and what we're going to talk about today is how do we move ourselves and migrate from a reactive stage, which we have to go through as we grow up, and continue the journey up to becoming more creative. And you all can decide, where you fit in that right now, but we're all the way. So this is where the leadership circle and the model will work with fits right into these two sets here. Now, just a little bit, I got 3 points of data. This is not going to be a lot of statistics, but I want to set it up. TLC, the leadership circle, has several 100,000 profiles now in its data bank, so it's got a lot to work with statistically. And one of the pieces of research is the correlation between business performance, like generating and some classic business metrics, and an assessment of leadership effectiveness. Their studies show that a correlation is about 0.61. It's pretty high. It's pretty good. Suggesting that the more effective a leader you are, lo and behold, surprise, the better, the stronger your business performance will be. But what does that mean for the upper and lower half of the circle? So here we have the creative side. This is people in the upper half of the circle who are tracking and being shown to be creative against leadership effectiveness. Now remember, we got business performance to leadership effectiveness. This is now upper half of the circle type of leader, creative leader, to leadership effectiveness. You can see the correlation is really high. So this is telling, we're very clear now that if you get leaders up to that creative level, operating fundamentally with that mindset, they're going to be very effective leaders. And they'll be experienced that way, and that, of course, will generate business results. The negative, relatively negative, this is the lower half of the circle, reactive. You've got leadership effectiveness, and you've got your tendency to be reactive. So here the correlation's a minus 0.68, which says that if you're a heavily reactive leader, you have nothing much else, but everything you do is in a very strong reactive mode, your effectiveness will be lower. But you'll have some effectiveness. Okay. So that's all the data I want to show you. I'm throwing a lot just to position ourselves, so hang in if you will. Today we're only going to work with what we call the inner circle. So this is taking the 29 competencies and collapsing them into 8 sort of inner dimensions, inner pieces of the whole model. And it looks like, and you have this on your sheet, if you look at that top sheet there, you can see a little overview. If you're in the creative, your worth, you're deciding your own worth versus listening to other people to tell what your worth is and your value is. You have your own relationship. That means that if I am working with Tom and Tom intimidates me, and I'm going to a very kind of submissive way whenever I get around Tom, and I'm not aware of it, that relation has me. I'm in it. I don't see it. If I'm in the creative level, I've moved to the point where I can actually see myself interacting with Tom and notice the feeling I have of being intimidated, but seeing it outside. Oh, look, every time I'm around Tom, I'm scared. You know what? What's that all about? I'm now moving up to the creative level because I'm now able to see my position, how I'm showing up with Tom, as an object versus being subjected in it, like a fish in water. Does that make sense? That's a huge shift in that. So the ability to see that. Self-authored vision and actions. The reactive, you're looking to outside for people to tell you how good you are, whether you made a good choice, whether you're likable or not, all that stuff. And you're taking their word over your internal version of what you are at the reactive level. And my relationships define me. So if he's my boss and he's putting me down, that relationship is telling me I'm not very good. So I'm letting him define me. He might tell me you screwed up on that task I gave you, but that's not me, that's the task. You know the old story. We are not our behavior. So that's what we mean here by my relationships define me. So, let's home in now. That's the overview. I want to home in on this, spend the rest of the time on the reactive, the lower end of the circle here. And it's comprised of three tendencies. I just want to do one thing here. Okay, leave that up there. Three tendencies, and you can see them here. This is a very close version of what you have in that second sheet here. But the complying tendencies, if my default is unawares I'm complying, my tendency is to satisfy the other people around me, do their bidding, find out what they want and what will make them happy, and just give it all to them. Often to the expense of what I want and what will make me happy. Not questioning or challenging, avoiding conflict, being submissive, trying to be nice, asking for positive feedback, wanting to be liked. And that's in the extreme, but that would be the complying style. And you can, if we go back here just for a second to this, being likable, acceptable, cautious, and submissive. The protecting style, and I'll come back in, is more arrogant, critical, distant, and superior, protecting myself from being removed from it and being very smart so nobody can touch me. And then the controlling is more driven, competitive, and ambitious. Those are the three. I'll just dig into each of the second one again. So the first one is complying. There we go. The second one is protecting. My fear here is that they see me as not smart or not having all the answers, it's going to be bad. They won't value me. They can't count on whatever my information is I bring to the table. They won't listen to me. They won't promote me. They'll ignore me. I'll be fired. I'm toast out on the street living in a tent. I mean, sometimes when you get people into these, and you, as a coach, you get delved down into that, there's a lot of fear in there. That's a huge fear. So that drives me, if I'm in the protecting mode, and that's one of the reactive tendencies, and maybe that may be my home one as I go up, I'm going to present myself as witty, as smart. I've got all the answers. I've read all the books. This is, by the way, this is my home base for reactivity right here. I will admit, I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'll adopt a superior attitude. I'm above, I'm kind of arrogant. Criticize, find the flaw in the other person's point of view and attack it and dismantle it and come in with your own and stand back and sort of say, well, I'm pretty good, you know, I see the value I'm bringing. So protecting is very much about using your intellect and your mind to protect you from all your fears about being revealed and not being good enough and that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Again, the arsenal is the mind. The first one, the arsenal, is the heart. Complying is, I'm going to suck up to people so they'll like me and I'll be safe. I'll use the heart approach. That would be the first one, and this is protecting. The third one is called controlling. And here my fear is if they see me as weak, indecisive, imperfect, not strong, not a winner, bad things will happen to me. fears. These are not necessarily true. They're fears, but they're deeply seated held fears that will drive me to control, to tell you all what to do, to micromanage you, to not delegate to Doug. I just can't trust Douglas yet. I'm not going to delegate to him yet. Maybe in a couple of years, to hold it to my vest and find fault and probably bark at people and be kind of rough and dramatic and very authoritarian. Behind my power of that, perceived power, is my security. They'll value me because I can get results out of this team. Yeah, I'll just drive them. They may drop, but we will meet that goal, and they will love me upstairs. Okay, so those are the three: heart, intellect or mind, and power. There's the overview. What I'd like you guys to do now, I'm going to give you about 5-7 minutes, and I'd like you to do this in trios. I normally just cluster in anything. As much as possible, get into threesomes, a foursome if you have to, but try to stay away from the fivesome. I would like you to spend a few minutes talking about this, just looking at what you heard, the tendencies. Which of those do you most identify with? Which is, for me, it's protective. And I would try to read all the books and know everything, so if I ever went to a client's office and they mentioned a new theory, I'd say, well, yeah, actually I read about it. What they're saying is blah, blah, blah. So I felt secure in my knowledge. To me, it was protecting. What's your most strong one, and what might be your second and third? Because we use all of them in the reactive mode. It's not just one or the other. Secondly, if you can think of just an example back in your last year or so or wherever, where you actually were operating out of that particular, your most identified mode. If it was complying, where you were doing something about complying nature. Fair enough? Any questions? Okay, into trios, and we'll work at trios again in this session, so have at it.